I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my car, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr Podcast. This is your host, Jay Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just wanna have peace.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the LivBtr Podcast. On today's episode, I have a friend of mine, the founder of Sauna House, Andrew Lachlan. Andrew and I have a lot in common. We enjoy athletics, we enjoy contrast therapy, and we both like to discuss our recovery journey. Andrew's 11 years sober, and contrast therapy played a major role in his recovery process. It's also led to him creating Sauna House. My man, Andrew Lachlan from Sauna House. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely, man. I missed you. I'm glad we get to catch up on a podcast. What's going on in your world?
I've missed you too, and I'm like sitting here shocked that there's no branding on the front of your hat. I'm like, what's going on?
That's the whole point of this hat. It's like you can envision whatever you want. We could actually, put any logo we want, digitally. We make shit happen over here.
I just have hat envy. That's all, man.
So, Andrew, let's for the community's benefit, let's give a little bit of background on yourself. And I think you're better at doing that than I am. And then we'll kind of jump in and flow here. So, who is Andrew Lachlan?
Hey, Jay. Andrew Lachlan is the founder of Sauna House. He's a father of 2 girls. I love being a girl dad. I'm a mountain biking enthusiast, and I grew up as a competitive athlete playing ice hockey and lacrosse. After that career ended, I took on tennis and mountain biking as my new 2 fitness hobbies. Yeah, I've been fortunate to be part of a huge movement, the contrast therapy, communal bathing, whatever industry you want to call our industry. It's a very strange industry with no real name yet. I've been fortunate to be part of this movement now for 6 years, and we just started ramping up, so it's starting to get exciting. But I'm an eccentric founder. I love people, and I love the customer.
Yes, you do, and I love your concept. As an avid, what do we call ourselves? An avid user of hot and cold immersion. Contraster, just really immersed in the lifestyle. Not only are you a part of it, but you're a pioneer in it. 6 years is a very long time for this space. What inspired you to really get into it and then ultimately create Sauna House?
Yeah, great question. So early on, after my athletic career ended, my alcoholic career got fired up.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Which was fortunately for me fiery and short-lived, but 2 years sober, I was exercising, eating right, I was with my now wife. Everything on the outside should say, yeah, this guy's doing great, but inside I was really still struggling with deep depression and anxiety on a regular basis. It was sometimes very hard to get out of bed, things like that. And one of my good friends introduced me to cold water therapy. I got super lucky all at the same time. Like Tim Ferriss launched his podcast, who within the first 10 or 12 episodes, he had Dr. Rhonda Patrick on, who teed off about the 20-year study out of Finland, which is now just like overused all day long everywhere on the internet.
Thanks to Andrew Huberman.
Yeah, thanks, bud. And so I heard that podcast. My friend introduced me to cold water therapy, and I moved into a building in Potrero Hill, San Francisco that just coincidentally had a sauna in the basement that nobody used. I fired it up and it worked. We had this little courtyard pool that the landlords were too cheap to heat. And so in San Francisco, we had sub 60 water most of the year. So I started having friends over, and we were just hitting the sauna and cold pool literally all the time, and I really fell in love with the benefits, and I quickly noticed how it impacted my mental health. I obviously noticed the inflammation, I noticed better sleep quality and stress reduction, but the anti-anxiety, antidepressive effects of sauna and cold water therapy, there's still not that much data there, but anecdotally, from my experience and the experience of now thousands of customers, it really helps people. And we're still at the early days of the science, is what I like to say. Like there's so little out there in our field still. But do you need the data to know that something anecdotally works and feels good, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what inspired me to get into it. I started using it in San Francisco in some of the communal bathing areas. Then I started using it in Europe, and experiencing the kind of different shapes and sizes. And when my wife and I moved back to Asheville, North Carolina, to be closer to her family and good mountain biking, I decided it was a good time to try building our first location. And we pushed literally our entire net worth into that project. And luckily the customers showed up. Unfortunately, we had COVID in the middle there, but a great teacher. And now we're back and firing on all cylinders. So.
All right, so you said a lot, and I'm very intrigued by what you said, because there's so many similarities, and I find it so interesting that people who have been dealt with issues with alcohol or drugs, or just in recovery of some sort, really gravitate to this lifestyle. I feel like almost more often than not, people that are really into it have struggled with something, on some level.
Yeah.
And so when you first kind of discovered cold water immersion, like once you were done with that like communal pool that happened to be sub 60, like what did you graduate to? I'm just curious what the evolution was before we'll get to Sauna House, but what was the evolution of your, experience, what you were doing?
Yeah, well, I started like with super cold water, like icy water, and then the pool, which was like 55. And both.
How were you getting the super cold water? Like, what were you in?
Well, either in the bay or in a bathtub at home with ice.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's how I started too. Was the bathtub with ice. That's how I started.
Yeah, speaking to the recovery side of things, though, a little bit, where you touched on, a lot of people are suffering. Period. Right? You got two types of suffering: mental, physical, right? You have 4 states of consciousness. You have the mind satisfied and content, but the body restless and irritable. You have the mind satisfied and the body satisfied. That's the most desirable state that we all seek. And then you have the two opposing, where body and mind are both uncomfortable and unsatisfied. And then you have body satisfied, but mind restless, right? And cold water impacts the nervous system in such a way, especially paired with sauna. And that's where the data is really lacking, is the combination of them together. But in my experience, a couple rounds of sauna and cold therapy, it expands veins and arteries, expand and contract, right? So you're lowering blood pressure and all kinds of things like that. Then I always say you're rewiring the dopamine reward system. So, speaking of Andrew Huberman, right, you want to have effort and then dopamine, something hard, then dopamine. And so at Sauna House, the first thing you do is everybody showers, because that's good bathing etiquette. And then they sauna, which can be hard depending on how long you stay in or what fitness level you're at.
And what temperature you're at.
Yeah, exactly. And so you spend 10 to 15, 20 minutes in there, pretty hard. Go into a cold pool. Now that's really hard, right?
Yeah.
And then you get out and you get all this oxytocin, norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, and you feel great. So for people, I love Judd Brewer's book called Unwinding Anxiety. Everyone is truly an addict of something, and we're all like dopamine seeking missiles, right? Any shape, form,
Can't
right?
avoid it.
Can't avoid it. It's everywhere. It's accessible. It's cheap. But the problem is you just get dopamine by, whatever quick hit, right? You're not putting in that effort.
Easy, right? Easy access to it, right? We've always been looking for quick hits of things that, are easy to get that immediate dopamine effect, right? Like, and that's an addict. That's an addict.
Yeah, totally. Right? And well, we just confuse pleasure with contentness and happiness, right? And unfortunately, that's just not how it works. And so I always say we're rewiring the dopamine reward system for people, and we're also working on that pituitary gland that, I believe is kind of tuned by using extreme temperatures and it works that pituitary gland and muscles in the brain, and I believe it helps restabilize brain chemistry for people.
I want to jump around a little bit. So when you say that you had this hard and fast alcohol problem, how did you know that? Because I feel that way about myself, and I never, I think part of being an addict is like not admitting it to yourself, even if you know that. How did you kind of snap out of it? When did you realize you were dealing with a problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, early on, I just drank like I thought I was normal, because everybody drank heavily as a teenager and, young adult. And then I started to realize when my friends were graduating college and I had been failed out now for 2 years, I started to realize, well, people are making progress in life. I'm really consistently using a lot of alcohol. I'm pretty stubborn. Most alcoholics and addicts are pretty tough people. They don't like to quit anything,
Yeah.
And so like the belief
rehab is for quitters was like something I wore proudly. Like I would wear a t-shirt saying that. It's like, what an idiot,
I was right there with you, Jay. And I mean, I think in life, if you listen to what I would call the spirit of the universe, it likes to talk to you in different ways, but it's all about whether or not you have the humility to listen to those kind of, whether it's a song or a book or a new friend that's been introduced to you that's sober and you're like curious about it, but you're like, nah, I'm good. And you just keep, that's the ego, right? The ego's like, oh, he's like, I'm good. Nope, I don't need that. Nope, I got this. Yup.
Yeah.
And I feel very lucky that
how'd you wake up? What was the moment for you?
Well, there was kind of two. So I had at 22-ish, I took psychedelics for the first time, and I sold my then car washing business, and I just took a backpack to Europe and stayed over there traveling to like 16, 17 countries, and just magically within 2 weeks of that trip, I stopped drinking, right? So
wow.
That was a very interesting spiritual experience for me, and all kinds of literature, and people were coming to me wanting more from me in the world. This isn't it for you, Andrew. Like you have special potential that I believe a lot of people have, if not everybody. And then, I stayed sober for 2 years, but that time I didn't really do the work, as they would say in like AA programs. And so 2 years later, I had a business, everything was going good, started drinking, lost my partnership, lost my company. And I quickly realized that time, like, hey, I went right back to drinking like an asshole, It didn't take
you were
long.
Young, you were young,
Yeah, totally. And so that time wasn't nearly as bad as the kind of 17 to 22 phase. I was much more self-aware and recognized like, hey, this is really unhealthy. I'm really struggling. I don't know how to deal with this. I kept trying to manage it, You're only allowed to have 3 beers a night during the weekdays, and then whatever you want during the weekend, and then
by the way, which I feel like a far majority of men are dealing with the struggle that you're talking about right now, because it's so normal and it's so okay to drink, where it's, and I think that for me personally, when I started to remove alcohol from my lifestyle, I started to wake up and like be available. I think the signals that we get, oftentimes we're so numb to, because we're just numb and like in this state where we're not available and we're not really seeing clearly, right? I think that's a big part of, for me, like kind of thawing out and like, wow, holy shit, I don't even really know myself anymore, because any difficult thing, I would just have a drink and to like not deal with the difficult thing. And that started young for me. And it sounds similar to you, where you just dove into it. And I think it's really, really cool that, what you're doing with Sauna House, and it doesn't have to be drinking or drugs or, things. It could be so many other things.
So many.
but I've never felt better than, since removing alcohol. The biggest positive thing in my life has been contrast and cold and hot. And, I don't get so scientific about it. I'm just like, I fucking feel good.
Right.
Like, I feel really good.
Yeah.
It works.
And you're not doing something that destructive to yourself. And so, one of the things about addicts too is like the shame train, right? Like shame and guilt. Like you have these conversations in your head that you don't realize you're having, where you're talking to yourself like an asshole. Oh, I shouldn't have fucking done that last night. I really got to work on not drinking 10 beers, but only 3. Oh, you're really not getting your work done because XYZ, you're a bad person. You lied to your girl or whatever, all these thoughts, right? And like, dude, when I get done a couple rounds of sauna and cold therapy, no thoughts, right? Like you're really free from shame and guilt because you're doing something good for yourself, right? And doing good things for yourself, like, and that comes deep with self-love too, right? And forgiveness of the previous version of you, right? Because like it's pretty easy for me to revert right back to talking to myself like an asshole, even without alcohol, right? Oh, I shouldn't have ate that ice cream last night, or I should, I messed up that call or that business deal or whatever. And I start talking to myself like I'm not good enough and all these things. And it's like, that's what awareness is, right? And, meditation and mindfulness and breath work, those have all been huge tools for me too, right? To create self-awareness. And I think, to speak to what you were saying about when you're in active addiction, you're just go, right? Like, when you're getting up. And then when you're down, you're figuring out how you're going to get back up. And then you just constantly focus on taking care of yourself and functioning and getting lunch and getting money and getting whatever. And you're not really thinking of what's going on inside your own mind. And, some people say, like, go to the balcony, right? Like, can you observe yourself removed from self so that you can say, get some perspective on things? And when you're an alcoholic or in any kind of really active addiction, it's very difficult to get up on the balcony and absorb and see yourself. Because, the ego's just running wild, telling you what to do all day. And then you have the physiological effects of different substances, whether that's sugar or, opioids or, cocaine or alcohol or any of these different types of, really addictive substances.
Yeah. I mean, again, just, tying it all together, I think it's really cool, how you early on were kind of led to this medicine, if you will, of, contrast and hot and cold, and, really you realized the benefit and then wanted to share it with others, which obviously was the genesis of Sauna House. And, bring us up to speed. First off, I travel and look at, amazing, unique concepts all the time. That's what I do. And I have yet to visit something as special as Sauna House.
Oh man.
And it was your first go at it too. I love getting into I've been, fortunate enough to visit your first location, and, just, it's so easy to see that, the vision that you had and, the building that you converted and just the people there that are all sharing that experience together, done so well. And I'm so excited.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I really appreciate that. That means a lot from someone that's seen so many concepts, and, another founder who's in the direct to consumer cold water market said he loved Sauna House too. And I didn't even know he had been 5 times. He doesn't live in our state. And he's like, I've been all over the country and I love your concept, man. It's great. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I feel very lucky, again, like, I had good people around me giving me, help on design. And obviously my now business partner and co-founder, Jen, she was my first employee. Like, how'd I get so lucky with her? She's a whiz kid, so smart, loves people, great with teams and operations. Yeah. So to bring it up to speed a little bit, Sauna House, V1 is in Asheville, North Carolina. We have 2 corporate stores in active construction right now in Charlotte and Durham. That's where I am right now. I'm in Charlotte.
Nice.
I'll be in Durham all next week. We sold a bunch of franchises last year, so we chose the franchise route because we wanted local owners to represent their towns. And every sauna house is going to look and feel like a sauna house, but they'll be a little unique. Our real estate's pretty tricky and special. You know, our infrastructure is really heavy. Everybody thinks like, oh, it's so simple. These sauna cold plunge businesses are so simple.
Well, listen, it can be simple, but the way you guys are doing it is definitely not simple, but it's special.
No. Yeah,
you can't achieve special really typically in a simple fashion.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Yeah, it looks simple and clean, but that's often the hardest thing to pull off from a design perspective. So yeah, we've got projects now going all over the place. 3 or 4 stores will open this year, and then next year we look to deliver a store per month all year. And the team's growing. It's been really fun going from like me and Jen to a whole org chart, and we have a really robust team to support all the different verticals that franchisees need along the way, and very heavy support in construction because our build outs are very unique and capital intensive, and all the risk is really upfront during construction, in my opinion. Obviously, there's operational risk too, but when you're making no money and you're shelling out $2.5 to $3.5 million to get open, you got
to do a lot of ice baths to get you through that.
Yeah, a lot of stress reduction. You need a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, and I know, and I wanted to go first and show our franchise partners, like, I believe so much in the operational business. I'm not going to stop at just one corporate store. Durham and Charlotte are phenomenal projects, and getting them capitalized and financed with SBA 7A loans, man, that put a lot of gray hairs on my head this last year. It's a lot of work. I mean, I'm all in, dude. I'm personally guaranteed up to the teeth. I know.
Listen, I think that's as a founder, right? That's I same thing. I mean, I borrowed millions of dollars to start my company. Yeah. I've never seen a loan, that you're not personally guaranteeing, so I would love to find them, by the way, but, it is what it is, right? If you really, if you believe and you are all in, like, you have to be doing what you're doing. And that's, I think, the only way other people will buy into your dream too, right? Like,
that's right.
If you're like, listen, I'm going to raise capital from everybody else. I'm not going to put in a dime of my own money. Who's in?
Yeah. No. And again, like, I mean, if I had unlimited amount of capital right now, I would build as many stores as I could, as fast as I could.
Of course. But from an operational standpoint, it's also probably smart that you're not at the same time, right? Because when you're as you continue to add them, you're going to, continue to make tweaks and iterate. And, I said, the first location to me feels already like it's, the 20th location.
Wait till you see
when
Charlotte.
You describe it.
You're going to love it.
But when you describe it and you walk me through and you tell me, like, on the lower level, what it took to get done during COVID and all the things. Yeah. I love the fact that you've been nimble.
Crazy times, dude. That was a crazy. I mean, we had 2 kids. We had COVID. We had 2 renovations. No one knows. Like, we launched upstairs first, right? And then we got traction, and customers were there. I hand drew the permit set downstairs. Told the government it was going to cost like less than $30,000, so I could be the GC.
Yeah.
And then we just busted ass from like 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. before opening, and all day Wednesdays on our close day to get the basement open, and then 3 months later, closed for COVID. It was wild. Yeah, closed for COVID. The same week we found out we were pregnant with our second kid. And I was like, $27,000 in the bank account. I was like, this is bad. This is real bad, And
I've been there, man. I literally have been there, which is like, crazy.
I told my wife, I was like, we're either going to Mexico.
I think I didn't have 27,000. I think I had less, actually.
Yeah, well, I had a lease commitment. There was payment.
You had liabilities that exceeded the 27,000, so you were negative anyway.
Oh yeah, our burn rate. I remember like whittling it down and being like, okay, we're gonna burn $14,000 a month, totally closed with no employees. I can do that for a month and a half. I think our landlords, helped us out with a couple months of rent, which was nice. Yeah, we reopened. When we reopened, we lost as much money closed as we did open for the next 4 months. So that was a gruelingly painful year, 2020, and then 21, we were like hitting. We figured it out, and we broke $1 million for the first time in 2021, and now we're doing great, and yeah, I'm very lucky. I just again, I would have closed and moved to Mexico and filed bankruptcy if I didn't believe in a bigger vision, and
Yeah.
we're still paying off that COVID debt that I took to survive, and yeah, now we're rolling, and the goal is to be the largest sauna bathing brand in the country, and we've got a great team. We've got a great concept. We're continuing to find the right capital partners for us to grow the way we want to grow, which is super intentional and in the right buildings with the right partners. I don't think I quite understood what it was like to be a franchisor until like I got, 10 franchisees going.
Now you know.
Now I grew up a coach, right? So I was a player and a coach, and you're coach, right? Like we're the coach, and we got the game plan, and you need us. We're going to give you the playbook, but it's your job to play the game, right? And it's been really fun and rewarding, get to work with entrepreneurs and let them pursue their dreams of business ownership and financial independence and of time and money.
Partners, they're partners for you.
Absolutely. They're shareholders. I realize I'm indebted to, you have a bunch of shareholders, and Danny Myers talks about this best, but your customers, your employees, investors, debt holders, franchise partners, those are all my shareholders. And, I owe it to all of them to deliver. And, we've spent a lot of money and time building a robust franchise system. Like you came down here and you were like shocked. You were like, what? I've never really seen anyone with N of 1 have this much going on.
You're doing it right. You're doing it right.
I think
tell us.
Yeah.
Well, listen, for the experience is right for sure. And, you're thinking big picture, you're building a real business. All right. So you're in Charlotte now, and I visited the 1.0 version in Asheville. So tell me what I will discover in Charlotte or in the new locations that I didn't see in Asheville.
Sure. It's a lot more of the same, just upgraded. So the saunas are better. They're bigger. I would say they're hotter, but they're probably about the same.
Okay.
You're going to see a lot more water in the brand. So we're bringing in bigger cold water therapy tubs. Some of the new locations are going to get warm pools as well. And just more experiential bathing environments, I would say. It's going to feel and look the same probably, but, better materials everywhere, from anti-slip tiles to better floor drainage to better music and lighting packages to better saunas, more pools, more water. So, yeah.
So with, again, the popularity, obviously, of bathhouses, especially in bigger markets and in major cities like New York, so for somebody who's not familiar and hasn't had an opportunity to discover Sauna House and enjoy it, explain, in your mind, the differentiator. And, for me, I'll just jump off with cleanliness, for me, jumped out, but go ahead. Tell me, what somebody could expect if they haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah, a lot of the public bathing facilities are underground in dark, dim lit environments. It does make a lot of sense for pools to be on ground level. They're very heavy. But Sauna House has a bright white vibe, and when you show everything clearly, the dirt stands out. So you got to keep things really tidy and clean. I would say that Sauna House really likes to double down on etiquette and education. So when you're coming into a Sauna House, you can expect great hospitality as a first-time customer. And, we require everybody to shower using soap and water before entering the facility, which, in my opinion, upgrades the cleanliness all around for everybody. And
people are gross.
Yeah, we're just people, right? Like
humans
we're carrying
are gross.
bacteria of all kinds.
I love that. I mean, it really like it makes me feel good, about like I don't have to worry so much about like what I'm touching and like being a little bit of a germaphobe, but loving doing all these things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. So Sauna House, you're going to expect like a brighter, cleaner, whiter vibe than most bathhouses. But New York has a lot of cool stuff going on. You have Bathhouse in New York. They just launched their second location in Flatiron. Unbelievable project. Stunning. Great vibe. You have Othership coming in right now. I think the Flatiron district, totally different vibe than Sauna House. That's much more group class led than us. So we're a traditional bathhouse where you have autonomy to move throughout the experience at your own leisure, but we recommend a specific circuit, and I do that specifically because I don't want people asking themselves, what do I do next? Where do I go next? When the facilities get too big, that's what you do. You ask yourself, oh, should I go over that thing or this thing, or should I go over there? Or they don't really know, and then you're asking yourself all these questions about where to go, what to do.
With that, real quickly, so how big is a typical sauna house square footage?
Yeah, our strike zone is 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, so big but not giant. And you'll expect to see 2 public bathing circuits, so 2 different saunas kept at 2 different temperatures and humidity levels, 2 different cold pools, maybe 3 different cold pools. Kept at different temperatures, so new people can try different temperatures to see
what are the temperatures.
Yeah, we like 55 as our entry level pool, and then 48 is our second pool, and then if we have a third pool, it'll be down around 42. And you get the same benefits, it's just a different amount of time. Certain people like the more aggressive cold pool temps down at like 42, 45, but anything under 60 at a 5-minute exposure, you're going to get the benefits that we're aware of today in the market, right? And again, there's no time temperature studies. People can harp all day long on the internet, but it's not there. There's no data.
It's funny too, because I feel like people, are like, especially first off, it's interesting because there's a lot of tattoos. Like I always find that so interesting. Like, when we were hanging out, we were all heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
And it's like, and everybody else was kind of heavily tattooed too. And I'm like, I was just thinking about the mindset of people who really enjoy getting tattooed as like, I every time I talk about it, I'm like, it's really therapeutic. And somebody who's also heavily tattooed is like, I totally feel the same way. And like, people don't get it. And it's funny because I feel like our mentality is the type of mentality that's like, no, I have to do it at 42 to like torture myself more, even though you're probably not getting any additional benefit than you would at 48, or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's
funny, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a fun culture,
Yeah.
Bathing culture is amazing all around the world. It draws in such a vast, diverse group of people, and certainly in the States, tattoo culture, music and arts culture. Very strongly represented in the bathing culture scene.
Totally. And like, it's not, it's funny because I recognized it when we were together. Obviously it was easy to recognize, but I'm wondering if that is, and I think it's probably common in the recovery space, it's probably, so it's just all the same types of people at this stage, kind of discovering it, enjoying the lifestyle. And I think ultimately, obviously, all different types of people are going to enjoy this once they discover it, because how could you not, as far as I'm concerned?
Yeah, me too. There are people who are a little too bougie for us. They want
that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. There's going to be,
let them go to the cold plunge at the Four Seasons, because that's going to happen too.
Totally. You've got, we're a pretty accessible price point. Different stores will have slightly different price points based on the cost of real estate in those markets and what kind of
that's normal, tiered pricing in premium markets.
Yeah, and we're probably $40 to $50 for a drop in, and across the country, and then memberships and series passes bring that price down. And in Asheville, people are paying low 20s, mid 20s for visits, and so it's quite accessible to a lot of people. I know it's not accessible to everyone, but this is how things go. When Uber came out, it was all black cars, not accessible to people. got market fit, figured out how to scale. Price comes down as supply goes up, right? And right now there's a huge demand for what we're doing, but there's no supply. So any sauna business, you could put a barrel sauna in the middle of the street with a cold pool and be profitable.
Yeah.
Because there's really no supply. But
Yeah.
and that's because these facilities are really so hard to build. But as supply continues to increase, price will slightly come down, and there'll be different offerings at different price points and with different experience levels. And I believe that this is going to be one of the largest wellness movements over the last 30 years. I think this industry is going to be humongous because of how much people are suffering, but how approachable it is and how good the results are.
I agree. And I'm curious. My last question for you that I'm very curious about is, what are the main differences between infrared sauna and traditional? Because a lot of the chains that are coming that are taking that like Starbucks type real estate, like Orange Theory type real estate, are infrared. And when I'm touring spaces, new concepts and everything else, 9 times out of 10 right now, they're infrared, they're infrared sauna concepts with a couple of cold plunges. Or now they're actually building out rooms that have the infrared sauna and a cold plunge in the room. So what's the main difference?
There's a couple main differences. One would be the
Take
overall
your time, because this is a question for myself.
Ambient air temperature is definitely one of them. So infrared sauna typically runs lower. Traditional sauna is a great place. 195, that's hot. You need a 195 traditional sauna in America, at least. That's going to be the temperature. And infrared, you're going to be anywhere 145 typically. There are some infrareds that go above 170, but it's pretty rare. Infrared panels, there's some data. I have not seen one scholarly journal ever on an infrared sauna. But the body core temperature is rising, the exposure takes longer. So based off of like what I believe to be true with cold water, where it's like, well, if you're at 55 degrees and you stay in for 5 minutes, that's probably similar to 45 degrees at 3 minutes. Right? Core temperature goes up and down, and depending on how hot it is, it's going to move faster or slower. Now, you have obviously wavelengths, near and far infrared wavelengths. Those wavelengths are penetrating the tissue and getting into the bloodstream. Depending on how close you are to those panels, again, there's no real data there, but anecdotally speaking, I can tell you when I do an infrared sauna, like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden I'm profusely sweating, right? It definitely feels like a little bit more like it's heating me from the inside, which is what a lot of people talk about, versus just this external ambient air temperature. Certain doctors speculate that it's softer on the central nervous system and therefore less of an immune response is triggered. So, we found for people with Lyme disease, it can be a more effective treatment than traditional sauna because of that central nervous system staying in a more comfortable place.
Interesting.
But the blood, really being impacted, and that's where the bacteria of Lyme disease is hanging out. So, anecdotally speaking, I would say that the benefits are probably pretty similar, but there's so much to be determined still, and the science there is just really lacking, in my opinion, on infrared. The reason they're going out faster is because they're cheaper. A lot of the stuff's coming out of China and Asia. I really like to inform people that there's a lot of glue and bonding agents that are being used in certain products that, to me, produce off-gassing that is not something I would want to be inhaling in a hot room especially. And then some of those panels, there's different quality infrared panels that I'd be more or less interested in being around. And they use less power, right? And it's a smaller room. So, if you're going to upfit a space and you need 200 amps of power, no big deal. You're going to build a sauna house like we are and you need 1,200 amps of power, all of a sudden it's a pretty big deal.
For sure.
And so everybody wants to do the cheapest, most fastest thing to market. And so you're going to see, a lot of infrared and cold plunge studios first, and then you're going to see a lot more of what we do next. and we'll see what the consumer likes more at the end of the day. Obviously, I love what I do, and I believe in what I do, so we'll see where they go.
So do I.
Yeah,
Agreed. Yeah, totally. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you jumping on here. It's been an amazing conversation. Always love hanging out, chatting with you. I'm excited we had an opportunity to catch up.
Yeah.
And everybody else gets the benefit from the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you sharing the message, Jay, and for
100%.
coming down to see us. And I would love to see you again, and keep hanging out and sauna bathing and doing fitness stuff and talking recovery. It's the best. So thanks for having me on today.
My pleasure, brother.
Yeah, man. Chat soon.
Thank you.